Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Tallon, illustrator and creativity coach, founder of the Creative Condition, artist and writer. I bring 20 years of creative industry experience and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness, to you through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. You'll get a nourishing mix of creative industry professionals and people far and wide using creativity in ways that can take our learning to the next level so we can maximise our unique blend. The show has been supported from day one by Illustration X, a tremendous illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. The music for the show is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. And for everything else, for my coaching, resources and inspiration, head to thecreativecondition.com. Guys, how are you doing? This is the Brew Brain Dump. It's episode 1 and it's something new, and I'm going to keep it brief because the idea is that these are sub 10 minutes, so you can have it with your own brew in the morning. You can share in this brain, get on top of these thoughts. Now, I know I run the Creative Condition Creativity Diary, which is separate episodes and runs on thecreativecondition.com, where you can read the diary in written form, but that's even a bit more curated than what I want this to be. I literally want to sit down with my morning coffee, share my thoughts, all relevant to creativity and learning and developing, and what's going on in the world, but a little more raucous. And it literally is going to be the duration of a brew rather than putting a kind of 5-10 minute cap on it. So that's what the idea is here. I hope you like that. And I'll tell you why. Let's get into the first topic. So I've got a black coffee, tiny bit of honey. I wanted to give you some real context on the brew as well, because if you've been following my story since my first book, Champagne and Wax Crayons, which you might not have been, but just for context, I love a brew, don't we all? And if you're not in the UK, then by brew I don't mean beer, I mean a hot drink, a tea, a coffee. We love a brew. It helps us to air our thoughts. It punctuates the day, helps us to keep some semblance of order, especially when we work alone as artists. Even in workplaces, it's a shared currency, isn't it? It's social. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have a brew with my audience. I'm going to have it more regular than my curated guest and diary episodes. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to use it almost as a journaling format to share my bouncing morning thoughts on creativity. So let's get into the first topic, because part of the reason I wanted to do this is I'm trying to place more value on rest. Now, I go through this with all of my coaching clients. I talk to them about the need to actively schedule downtime. And I don't mean downtime, okay, what can I watch? What can I read? That's cool if that's what you want to do for downtime, but I think it's equally important. And I had this conversation earlier in the week, and you're going to get to hear it soon on a guest episode with Tala Ray Schlossberg. Got to interview Tala alongside Owen Harvey at Paradiso Festival in Mexico recently, and I'm really, really into Tala as an artist and a human being at the moment. I think she's ahead of the game. I think she's got a wonderful mind, and I loved getting into that in the conversation we had this week. And something that Tala said to me was that she's going through a period of retraining to rest. I think that's part of a wider social psychology at the moment that's going on. I think we're all overwhelmed by the internet, by the world at large. I think we're exposed to insane amounts of information, not just too much for our species to cope with, but massively, like nuclear levels of information that is just fucking up our species in a really big way. And as part of my own healing from that, I'm on the brink of canning everything Meta, because I think what they're doing, I don't know if you saw the thing with Steven Bartlett this week, but there's he's been deep faked to scam people who trust him into handing over money. And I believe that someone in his own company sent 200 grand to one of these scammers thinking it was to their Berlin office as an emergency measure. That's fucked up. That's really dark. That's beyond Black Mirror. So as part of that, but also recognizing that for me to be enriched and nourished as a human, I actually need to pull it back to something closer to the early internet. And I'm talking before Facebook, before Instagram, any of that shit. I'm talking forums, I'm talking curated spaces with like-minded people who we choose to hang out together in a digital forum. That's why I'm bringing you this. Because now each morning with my brew, my first brew, not the one I'm sharing with you, this is the second brew. I'm sitting down, I'm reading whatever I'm reading. It could be fiction, it could be non-fiction. As long as it's enriching and nourishing to me, I'm taking the brew's length to sit down and read a chapter, a paragraph, a page, whatever that looks like, just to get myself in the zone, to feel energized, to feel curious, to feel interested. Then I start my client work. Even if I've got a deadline, which I do this morning, I'm backing myself to hit that deadline because I've never missed one in my career. That's 18 years as an illustrator. I'm good under pressure, so it's fine. Plenty of time later today. Watch, this will be the first one that I fuck up, won't it? No, it won't. But this morning I sat down and I just reflected. It's beautiful. Got a brew in hand. I reflected. I looked around my studio. I enjoy my little garden studio space. I let myself just ease into my thinking space. That is after a dog walk. I went for a big dog walk up on Castle Hill Park in Salisbury, which is like a kind of wild shrubland that's left up there on the tops. It's beautiful. You can see over the city. You can see the spire. It's gorgeous. Lovely way to start the day after I'd got the kids ready for school. Swig of the brew. That's all part of this experience. And I came back and I'm reading Zorana Ivchek. I can't pronounce the surname. That's shocking, isn't it? Zorana Ivchechich Pringle. That's the best I've got. But she's written an awesome book called The Creativity Choice, and I'm interviewing Zorana in a couple of weeks coming up, so I'm working my way through this book. So that's what I did this morning. Like I said, Tala Schlossberg, she's coming up on the show. She's awesome, what I'm loving about this I'm on the precipice of this, stripping my internet back to just LinkedIn, this podcast with you guys, email newsletter, and then direct communications over email and WhatsApp with people that I actually want to talk to. And that could be anyone. So get in touch. I want to hear from you guys off the back of this podcast idea. The idea is that these shorter, snappy ones is something that you can tune into in the morning with your brew, enjoy. I love to hear your thoughts. I love it when people get back to me off the podcast and say, I love that thing you said about blah, blah, blah. And then we open up a conversation. We might become friends. I've done that with so many people who've got in touch through the podcast or through my writing. And that's what's beautiful about living your life as your own artist and doing it your way and sharing. And that's why I'm sharing. This isn't kind of what's Ben thinking, an ego trip. No. This is about me as a vehicle for exploring and learning creativity. That is consistent through everything I do. My books, Champagne and Wax Crayons, The Creative Condition, this podcast, The Creative Condition, and everything else that I do, whether it's writing an opinion piece, having a conversation on my dog walk, sharing this brew with you guys. It's about furthering my life cause, which is elevating creativity. So that's where you find me on this little snappy new podcast, the Brew Brain Dump. I'm going to do them. It might be weekly, it might be bi-weekly, it might be daily. You maybe get them daily. I'm not going to put limitations on this. I'm just going to do it as and when the thoughts come. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have a brew, share it with you guys. So I hope you like it. So back to Tala. I'm going to start with her. So we had a wonderful conversation for the show, and something she said really resonated with me, which was, instead of getting into work and going produce, which is very easy to do when you like what we do and it's a part of yourself, it can also lead to burnout. And I really heard her on that one. I'm getting better at considering the negative space in my own ecosystem. So for everything that I'm doing and I love and I feel good about, I'm giving myself time to think and reflect. And that's something that Tala said. And she said because she needs to put herself in the right zone to receive ideas and have the right energy to be creative. And if you're producing all the time, constantly, feeling guilty for not putting new work out, not sharing, not doing, then I think that quickly leads us to burnout and overwhelm. And no matter how much we love what we do, it becomes counterproductive, counterintuitive to our energy and our enrichment as a human. So I love that, and I heard her, and it's something I've been doing for a while. I've been tuning more into what I call the source, which is serendipity and flow and just feeling good about myself as a human in my life, as in what am I doing, what am I excited about, what am I curious about. When I'm busy all the time and I'm always banging on doors, always emailing, always making, I'm cut off from that attunement. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, just that's the thought on that one. Wilding. Do you know, so my local council, they leave these little patches, quite reasonable sized patches actually, on the local green areas to let the wildflowers grow and the dandelions. But I don't think it's enough. So in the week, I emailed them to say, love what you're doing. It's really cool. Love that you're leaving these wild patches. But I think there's scope for more. Like you're too tidy in other areas. Fair enough, leaving the play spaces, trimming those and everything on the lawns, great. But this is a personal cause of mine. So the climate crisis and biodiversity and creativity, it's all interlinked. Again, something I go through with my coaching clients, looking at biophilia and relationship with nature and getting into all that stuff. So I emailed the council and I said that. And then I said, here's what I do. Look, I'm an artist. I'm local. Should we have a chat? Do you want a coffee? And they got back the next morning and went, yeah, that sounds good. Let's meet up and have a chat. Let's see what we can do. And I love that. If I could get some sort of commission or work through the council contributing to the cause of biodiversity, then whoa, that's a big one for me. So it just goes to show, doesn't it? Those things you feel when you give yourself time to be. I went through a phase of looking at my phone too much on the walks. Don't do that anymore. And therefore, I'm noticing more things like the wildflower patches, and that has stimulated ideas. I'm much more into that kind of way of existing as an artist. And that feeds back to what Tala was saying. What else for this brew? Coaching. I'm trying to let my coaching grow organically. So I went through a phase with this. I've been coaching now for a year, doing the pit stop and doing the agency stuff. So workshops and helping them better understand creativity and its inner workings. Swig of the brew. And I also fell into an intellectual trap with that. A little bit of imposter syndrome, thinking, okay, if I've got to prove myself and get these agencies to pay me what I'm asking to go and do the coaching, I've got to be X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no. You've been on a 15-year track here. You've learned a hell of a lot about creativity, which is already valuable. So lean right into that. Keep learning. Just keep reading. Don't feel the need to formalize and intellectualize everything that you're learning. It's in there now as a human. When you're curious and when you learn and you're engaged with your learning because it's what you're just into in your life, I think it sinks in on a level and then just stays and then comes back out through you, through your personality as a filter, just like art, just like anything else we produce and create when we're using our creativity. So that's what I've been allowing to happen more and more. And you know, lo and behold, what I'm finding during the pit stop sessions that I'm doing with people, it's just coming out. They're telling me stories and circumstances and problems and frustrations, and bam, 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 the dots are getting joined there and then because the information sinks in better when you're enjoying the learning process. So just a reminder on that one as well, something I wanted to mention. That's about it for this morning's thoughts. But the deepfake stuff with Steven Bartlett, if you haven't had a chance to look, go and have a look. It's rubbish, and I think it could be the beginning of the end of the internet as we know it. And that might sound alarmist or dramatic, but I really think that if we're in a position where people can be replicated in deepfake videos to the degree where you don't know it's not Steven Bartlett and they're handing over money, that could quickly spiral with the power of AI and just get to a point where we don't know what's real and what's not anymore. And what it makes me think is that we do need to go back to that early iteration of the internet where we work in private, quiet spaces, little networks. So look at what Katie Cowan's doing through Creative Boom with the studio project. It's great. It's back to kind of a water cooler forum. We're all in here because we're all creative professionals and we want to share our ideas and happenings, but we don't want all of what that over there, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that bullshit has become, because it's actually wrecking our ability to concentrate, focus, be engaged, create. I've come to a point where I really think that social media as a general tool has fucked up a lot of our creativity and our flow in our lives and also our smaller networks where we get more enrichment from and enjoy the company. So that is what I'm trying to do. I mentioned Tala Schlossberg. I interviewed Tala with Owen Harvey at Paradiso. I've been into Owen's work for years now. I had him on the podcast going back to 2018. He's a photographer doing subculture work. He's awesome. I genuinely love him as a human and his work. I love Tala as a human and her work. I love Hector Ayuso, who founded Paradiso, as a human and his work. That's now what I'm doing with my network. I think of Danny Molyneux. I think of Jane Bowyer. I think of all these people in my world who I admire their talent and them as a friend and a human. I'm trying to strip my network back down to that because I think that when you've got small numbers and powerful relationships, that is so much more empowering than this vacuous shouting into the void, which is comments on Instagram with thousands of people. And as much as we make good connections through that, I think you could spend your life doing that and not have the power of the relationships that we already have available to us in our localities. That's where we've gone wrong as a species, in my opinion. We need community spaces. We need that in person. We need that in our local areas. We need that broadly. That's why I go to creative festivals. I go to football matches. I go to wrestling because I want my tribe and I want to feel that energy, feed off it and create from it. But you can also get that online if you curate the internet better. I don't think the internet is wholly bad, but I think that social media has been completely hijacked by big tech corporate interests, and I think we're seeing that playing out right now. That's enough for one brew. Thanks for joining me, guys. That is the first Brew Brain Dump for the mornings. Love your thoughts on this format. I'm going to be doing more of them. They're going to be shorter than this one. This is a little longer because it's my introductory episode. Hoping to keep it sub 10 minutes. Duration of a brew, in and out. Have a good day. Enjoy yours. Nice one, guys. Head to thecreativecondition.com for all my resources, the coaching, the podcast, everything else. Thank you to illustrationx.com for sponsoring the show. As ever, go and check them out. Global range of illustrators and animators. Nice one, guys. Enjoy your brew. Take care.